Okay, so do we want to go into some of the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
We had some great questions,
Yeah,
everyone.
this is great.
Really
Made us think.
wow. Yeah, you really made us think.
All right, so what has been the most intense program you were responsible for? Really, it's international programs. You know, as rewarding and exciting as they are, as you can see, you know, they require a lot of work. And, you know, there's just a lot of extra steps that you need to take in order to ensure that you're still going to provide flawless execution for your client, you know, whether you are here or whether you're, you know, in Hong Kong. So that to me was kind of the more intense programs.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Agreed.
easy in the States.
and not to mention that, you know, you're pretty much going to travel to whatever country that is, and you've got to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So you're not, you know, you can only get so much rest on your flight. Chances are you're going to get there, you're going to hit the ground running. Your group's going to be arriving in the next day or so. You've got to figure it all out. I mean, I will tell you that one time I did a meeting. We did one meeting in Prague, and then we flew directly to New Delhi, and we did a program there. And I'd never been to India before, and I was really excited to be there. It was really intense. Landing in New Delhi at 7 a.m, and I've never done this before. I've never done it since. I was sitting in a meeting with the DMC that afternoon, and I actually fell asleep, and my head hit the table. Very embarrassing. But you know, you need to hit the ground running, and I needed to get to India and figure it out a day before my group was arriving, and they were all Indian, so they knew India. I didn't. So that's what I find can be the most intense.
Favorite country to plan? Again, I mean, I've gotten the question a lot, where do you love to go? This is very hard to answer. You know, as a event planner, you love to travel, right? We all love that aspect of it. So, you know, I think any country or any place you get to go is an opportunity and a great experience. So I think some of my favorite places to plan would be my top 5, because I still couldn't narrow it down, would be Spain, Italy, Istanbul, Hungary, and Hong Kong were my favorites.
And I would say every single thing that Brooke just said. I pretty much love anywhere I go. And then I kind of like to ramp it up a little. I like to get as different from what my normal life is as possible. So I love to go to Asia. I had the absolute amazing opportunity to spend 5 weeks in Beijing for the Olympics there. I spent 5 weeks on a mountain in Japan for the Nagano Olympics. Fell in love with those countries. I fell in love with India. But on the flip side, I love going to England. So, you know, there you go.
I like to plan national sales meetings and launches.
I love to plan anything that will allow me to be creative, like really creative. So I really love to do incentives, but even when Brooke and I do a national sales meeting, we have found ways to really ramp it up. A good example, last fall, we did a national sales meeting for a pharmaceutical, and we did one of their lunches. It was in October. We did Oktoberfest as their lunch, and we brought in a German Oompa band, and we served beer, and we had German decorations everywhere, and we had so much fun. And we took just a lunch, and we made it something unforgettable. Well, that's the kind of thing I like to do.
Laurie, you want to take this one?
Yeah.
What country has the most restrictions and most difficult time planning?
I will tell you the most difficult program I ever did based on restrictions is in the Middle East, is in Dubai. I was there many, many years ago, and I had a group of 2,000 people, many, many hotels. And the restrictions are, as you can imagine, they can be pretty intense. And back then, of course, we were using walkie-talkies, which to a certain extent I still prefer over a phone. But anyway, we couldn't just get walkie-talkies. Here, you can order them anywhere. We had to get them through the police department. We had to sign a million pages of document to be able to use police-grade walkie-talkies. They weighed about as much as a brick, and you couldn't even attach them to your clothing because they'd pull your clothes right off. But everything you did there was very, very restrictive.
And then I want to ask one more question about the Dubai. And then they, their cultures, they really restrict the alcohol, the drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, but, as an event planner, we should serve alcohol. So what did you do to control that area?
And you know what? And it depends on who's drinking it and where it's being consumed. If you are Arab in that country, you are not allowed to have alcohol. Mm-hmm. If you are a Westerner or probably Asian, I would extend that. In certain venues and certain hotels, it's permissible. Mm-hmm. So we were able to have alcohol. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah, great question. Mm-hmm. So when planning an international event, do you find that different locations require a different level of importance placed on certain program aspects? So, again, it really depends on your client's agenda and what they require. If they're super breakout heavy, it's a little bit more difficult to get a lot of breakouts. You're going to incur room rentals for all of the meeting rooms that you contract. It's not like in the States where you have an F&B minimum that you meet and they'll waive all of the room rental. And that really adds up your costs. So, again, just kind of working with what your client's expectations are on their agenda and letting them know, okay, you want all the regions, the 5 regions, to break out for 2 hours. We're going to incur a couple $1,000s of room rental. If you're fine with that and the budget can allow it, great. If not, maybe if we get a large enough general session room, then let's section people off. If the groups are small enough in corners, then maybe we only need to get 2 additional breakouts. So again, you have to think strategically and creatively because a lot of people have a budget. And you really want to stick to it and be able to maybe use that money towards, your evening events or another area. So, but great question. Mm-hmm. In your international experience, has there ever been a significant cultural conflict that threatened the event? Laurie, take it away.
Okay, so I'll take this back to Dubai. Again, it was, 2,000 people. So this was for a major worldwide company. I won't tell you who it was, but so the morning of our opening general session, and again, 2,000 people scattered in different hotels. People were, getting ready to come board the motor coaches to all come to the convention center there. And I got a call from the manager of the convention center, and he said, so we have a problem here. The sheikh who pretty much rules Dubai and owns the convention center has sent his security in to the convention center. They've kicked out all of your AV production company. They're closing you down.
Oh.
So why? What's going on? And he said, and keep very calm. Why? What's happened? He said, well, the sheikh reached out personally to the client at this multinational corporation a couple of months ago, and he invited himself to come speak at the opening general session. And she politely declined his invitation. She thought she had a choice. Well, no, she did not. And she didn't understand that. So he politely kicked everyone out of his building.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was quite a big deal. So we had to get to her right away. She had to go back and invite him to speak. We had to hold everybody at the hotels. Don't let anybody board any coaches yet. You know, we have, and you know, it's always that you have to tell everyone, everyone, there's just a slight delay. Why don't you go have another cup of coffee and we'll let you know when it's time. We had to get to her. She had to invite him to speak. Mm-hmm. He politely declined the invitation, but he allowed the production company to come back in. He allowed it to go on. He was making a point.
Wow.
And we got the message.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Wow. That's so. Can you tell me a little bit more about, you know, the Dubai is kind of better than any other the Middle East the country, because lots of Middle East country kind of restrict women to work there. Yes. So how, I mean, I heard that Dubai is better, but how that, but still, I believe there is some still the cultural restriction to like treat women. So what did you experience?
You know, I had an excellent experience there. And I think it was because I was not an Arab woman. Mm-hmm. I had an excellent experience. Mm-hmm. I was able to do everything I needed to do. People listened to me. They did as I asked them to do. It was phenomenal. And it's a remarkable place to take a group. The properties are gorgeous. Mm-hmm. There's so much you can do there. It really, really is a spectacular place to go.
Mm-hmm. But how about do you have any experience in other Middle East country to bring some group there?
Middle East. No. I mean, Brooke, it's not Middle East, but Brooke and I have both taken groups to Istanbul, which is Turkey, which is not the Middle East, but it is a Muslim country. I thought it was very easy to work there.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
All right. So, Laurie, what is your experience in Chicago? Someone is from a suburb nearby and interested in how the union affects your work.
You know, unions in Chicago, I haven't had a huge amount of issue with. I think that's primarily at the convention center. Certainly, if you bring in your own outside AV company, you're going to have some challenges, but that's true in a lot of cities. I'll tell you the bigger challenge I've had is in New York, and I'll give you two quick examples. I was working on a big event many years ago called the Goodwill Games. I don't know how many people have heard of it. Something Ted Turner created to kind of mirror the Olympics. So we were doing the Goodwill Games in New York City and staying at the Waldorf. And we had a hospitality suite set up there for our guests. It was probably open 20 hours a day. People could come in and, you know, get food and beverage and bar and relax and watch TV and whatever. We had these beautiful, large glass-topped tables there rather than banquet rounds. And these were like something maybe you would have on your patio or on your deck. Beautiful glass. Well, after one day, we discovered there were all these fingerprints all over them, right? People had touched them and blah, blah, blah. There was nobody whose job responsibility was to clean the glass top tables because it was so heavily unionized. So the only way we could get those tables cleaned was the Waldorf had to create a job called glass table cleaner, and they had to hire someone just to do that. And that's all that person did. And then at the same time, another example, same hotel, servers. I remember being there with a group dinner one night, and people were sitting there after dinner with their plates and their dirty dishes sitting in front of them. And I went up to one of the servers. I said, "Are you going to start clearing that table?" And this person said to me, "Oh, that's not my job. I can't clear. I serve." So they have totally separate employees who can only serve versus people who can only clear. So that's kind of my biggest example with unions was in New York, really.
All right, so what specific AV equipment is usually needed for a corporate meeting? So it really depends upon the size of your meeting and what type of meeting that you're going to be doing. I would say if you have a meeting under 30, then you can use the basics of a screen and projector. You don't really need any sound. But anything over 30, you really need to add microphones. So to make sure that everybody can hear the presenter. If you're between 75 or more, you should probably look at bringing in 2 screens. Again, this is if it's not like maybe a big NSM or lunch and you don't have a production company already really managing your main stage. But you want to make sure that viewing is good from where everybody is sitting in the room. Again, these are questions you want to ask the client, but at the same time, you want to provide them with guidance on what they should need. I mean, they'll normally say, well, we need a screen and projector. But if there's going to be, 60, 75 people in the room, depending upon your room type or your size, I would do 2 screens, right? So you just don't have this one long kind of tunnel that everybody's looking at the same screen, or maybe, you do monitors. So again, being knowledgeable about AV equipment as a planner is really, really helpful. And so, really lean on AV companies that, if you have partnerships with them, and maybe you have to use in-house, kind of get their opinion. We do it all the time to be like, do you think this works? What else should we have? Because again, at the end of the day, if people can't see the presentation, if they can't hear the presentation, then it's not going well. And it does come back to you. There's a lot on your shoulders as a planner. But that's what's great about it. You have that control, and you're able to offer that that expert knowledge and guidance to your clients.
Yeah.
So, what is the biggest detail that you think is very necessary when planning any event? Every detail.
Every detail. Because you know what might be minor to one person is a hot button for the VIP. So every detail is important, and not to be like a vague answer, but I hope that answers that.
I mean, what I always do is I put myself in the shoes of an attendee. Okay, so what is their interaction? What is their experience going to look like from the minute they get on site? I mean, you should be thinking about this from, launching registration, but, when they arrive to the airport, are you providing ground transportation? If not, so they're taking taxis. How do they get one? How far is it? If you have anything over 45 minutes and more than 100 people, you probably should be doing group transportation, right? During peak arrival and departure times. When they get to the hotel, how many people are going to be there at the front desk to check them in? Should you do a satellite check-in, or do you just need to make sure that the hotel has your arrival manifest so they are properly staffed so you don't have lines? That is really up to you in providing that communication to the hotel to ensure that, every part of the arrival and check-in experience is seamless. So, I can obviously continue to go on, but that's what just helps, is just putting yourself in their shoes. And then you can start to think through all of those details of, all right, so I need to, that's what I need to address. But yeah, I mean, it's every detail. Devil is in the detail, and that is what we are faced with in our job. And if you don't like detail, then you definitely don't want this.
And Brooke, actually, if I can tag on to that, because you make a very good point about, put yourself in that place, especially if you're doing something international. Think about how you feel when you get to the hotel after you've just traveled from, Denver to Frankfurt, how exhausted you are. Think about how you feel, and make sure that when the attendees arrive, if it's in your budget, to book their room the night before so they can get right into their room and nobody has to sit around the hotel lobby waiting until 3 o'clock. those kinds of things. That's a really, really good point, Brooke. Yeah.
When it comes to making a program for an event, what is the most important aspect to include? I think this would be your event specification guide. This communicates every detail of the event and your planning to all of your partners involved, hotel, your travel directors that may be coming on site to support you, audiovisual production, your DMCs, any internal staff on your team. It's just really an accurate agenda that lists every detail of the event.
Exactly. And again, it's that whole idea that over communicate. You can't over communicate these details and these points.
Especially for travel directors,
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are all aware of, that there are travel directors that their only job is they go from program to program to assist companies with executing their events. So they have no background knowledge of the program whatsoever. They show up on site and they're ready to go, but they have to have information provided to them. And having these ESGs is really important so they can, whether it's, on the plane or whatnot, that they read it thoroughly so they can ask any outstanding questions, right, or, address things on site with you and really get an idea of the program with, again, not having any knowledge of the planning phases.
Because again, we're only as good as the information we have.
Right.
If you're giving just half information to the people that you are entrusting to run this program perfectly and exceed expectations, you're kind of throwing them in to guess. And we don't want that. We want it to run exactly the way we planned it.
What do you do if your client lets you decide entirely about how they want their event to be? All they care about is that it revolves around a dinner gala team activity. We hope we're answering this right, but you kind of have a 50-50 shot of either exceeding expectations or completely failing, right? Because it's sort of a shot in the dark unless you really understand what your client likes, right. And as you grow with them, you will get that trust and they will be like, what we want, do it. But I would just say, it's regardless if they do give you that trust, to keep them informed of, as you go, this is what we're doing. This is, some of the decisions that we're making. So there are no surprises on site.
Right.
And I had a horrible situation where, we planned this amazing offsite event, gala dinner at a really beautiful ranch that Miranda Lambert got married at. It's in San Antonio. Laurie's nodding because she was there with me. And it was about 35 to 40 minutes from the hotel. We did a site visit with the client and everything. So but she had her, stakeholders that she reported to. So we assumed that she provided the info on what that transfer was like, that it was a good amount of time on a bus. If that wasn't the case, they showed up incredibly upset of how far that they were on a bus for. And we were completely shell-shocked about it. And it just sort of set the wrong tone for the evening. So again, making sure that you really have that communication there. And you can only do so much especially if you're a third party and you have to rely on your internal stakeholders to communicate. But yes, you just don't want any surprises.
No surprises. That was horrible.
Yes. Very, very stressful.
Stressful. And it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful place.
Right. And all they could think about was the bus ride. So we got drinks into their hands very quickly. Quickly. This is a great question. So how do you juggle between multiple projects? For me, it's prioritizing. Laurie?
Yep, same. I like to keep all my projects day by day in my calendar so that I can, and it's all color coded. So I look at every day and I go, okay, this is due next week, so I'm going to start working on that today. And then I'll set a time for it. And then as I finish it, I color code it. If I didn't finish it, I'll color code it a different color that it's pending, and then I move it to the next day. So,
and yeah. I think what's important is figuring out what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has their own method to keeping track of their to-dos. And you just have to figure out what your system is. And if it works, stay with it. Don't try and alter it because somebody else's sounds kind of good. If you're wanting to make a change because it's not working, then certainly do that. But yeah, you just need to find your own system and make sure that, you have a way to track all of your deadlines, because we have a million of them that we have to stay on top of. I know for like a contract, the minute we get a contract signed and countersigned, I will go through and put the rooming list deadline as well as the attrition deadline date in my calendar. So I already know when that's going to come up, and I can be monitoring that and never let that accidentally slip by when you have a ton of projects going on. So you just really have to prioritize.
And I would say too, to add on to that, depending on how complicated a program might be. So for instance, like if I'm doing an incentive program that requires, gifts to be purchased and elaborate print to be sent off and designed and sent, and things like that, activities that need to be booked and registration and all these things, you're really best to have a task tracker of some sort that backs everything out. So you can say 1 week prior, these things need to be done. 1 month prior, these things need to be done. And put dates on it and put who's responsible and have a way to check off that it's been done and keep track constantly that you're on schedule with all those things. Because if you don't, you can really get yourself into trouble.
All right. These are the last set coming up. So.
There were a lot of good questions, everyone.
Really great questions. All right. So what's a typical time frame to plan a corporate meeting? Really, depends on, the location, the number of attendees, and the lead time given to you by the client. Us working in pharmaceuticals, we have much shorter lead times. Whether it's a launch of a product, typically they don't want to, do something too far in advance because they're not entirely sure about, their approvals yet. And so again, I would just say, in the corporate environment, probably 3 months to a year would be standard for a lead time.
Yeah.
And if you're doing associations, sometimes you have much more than that.
Oh, you have years.
Years.
You have years in advance.
Yeah.
All right. So what are some crucial tips you have for us going into the industry that you wish you were told early on? I mean, great question.
Great question.
For me, the first thing is the long hours. When you're on site, I think that is unexpected and sometimes a surprise for people, is that you are the first one up and you are the last one to bed, because your meeting starts with breakfast and your meeting normally ends with a group event, and you have to be there to manage all facets of that day. If you're working a larger program, normally you will assign people to different areas. So we will have somebody on food and beverage, which means they're the first ones up to make sure breakfast is out at the right time, and all the food is labeled appropriately and everything's good to go. And then they'll maybe stay just to check the dinner, but then they're off for the rest of the evening, and we have an evening functions manager who will stay through that, through the end of the event until the last attendee leaves, close it all up. And then, they don't need to be down first thing before breakfast starts. So it's the long hours would be for me. What, Laurie, do you have any?
Okay, it's kind of funny, but it's true. Cute shoes don't usually work. Sometimes the shoes that I end up wearing, I feel like a grandma. But you know what? If your feet don't make it through the day, you're not making it through the day. And sometimes halfway through, change your shoes, different heel height. I remember doing a program many, many years ago, and we had a coordinator come out. She was cute as a button. So sweet, so energetic, couldn't wait. She wore the cutest shoes I have ever seen in my life. And the next day she came down, she was so covered in Band-Aids. There weren't enough Band-Aids in the hotel to cover the blisters on that poor girl's feet. She couldn't walk. And so cute shoes will be great for the pre-con, and they'll be great for before the meeting. But when you hit it and you're running down those halls and you're putting in 20,000 steps a day, go for comfort.
Yeah, you are always on your feet. That is
always on your feet.
Oh, at this moment, can I interrupt a little bit?
Of course.
Right now we have your junior staff here. So maybe their experience is kind of, our students are expecting to be like within a few years. So can we listen to them?
Yeah, I would love to. Brianna or Caitlin, do you want to give your opinions and thoughts on this?
Whoops.
I'm sorry, did you say Caitlin?
Sorry, we have a Caitlin on our team. Crawford.
Oh, sorry. No worries. Double checking.
Are they still on? I don't know.
No, I think we have two. Just I don't know. Here, just a moment. Okay, so yeah, right now I just make a sounds better, so I muted them. I don't know how I can release. Yeah, they can say nope. Yeah, I unmuted.
Let me just see if I can Slack with them. They're on.
Nope.
That would be great to hear what they have to say.
I know. I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
Brianna can't get her mute off. So yeah, let me see.
Okay, no, they can say no. I think they can say. I mean, if they start to say something, I think they can. No.
Well, while we wait, we'll go to the next one. While Bree or Caitlin tries to get that sorted.
Yeah.
You can interrupt whenever you guys get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what resources do you attribute to your success? For me, it's mentor. Has been the biggest attributor to my success. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work alongside my mother. And learn from her. So, and I really, really admire her in her work style. So she's been a really big one. And then, of course, Laurie, I mean, she's has so much experience in the industry. So I've really, really been able to learn from her. And honestly, it's really everyone that you do come in contact with the industry and you do make connections with. Relationships are huge. And so it's really, really important to keep your relationships, good and intact, and ensure that you're always open to learning and expanding, your viewpoint So yes, for me, mentors would be it. Laurie?
Yeah, I like what you said there, Brooke. I still, as I said, at the very beginning, being a travel director for as long as I was, just taught me so much. And so when I was able to come in-house, I felt like I already had like this library of materials I was bringing with me. But to tag on to something that Brooke said about resource mentors and relationships, some of my best friends are travel directors I've known for 25 years. And I still love talking with them because they're all still travel directors, and they will tell me like something that they just saw somewhere, oh, I just learned this cool new way to do this, or I just saw this really cool thing at this hotel. So again, keeping up those relationships really is really important. Yeah.
Okay, besides having past experience in events, what are some key skills that Global Access Meetings looks for in their employees? Really great. I mean, definitely being an extrovert is good because you have to be people facing for the majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, also being flexible, detailed, eager to learn, open to new experiences, creative, adaptable, professional, punctual for deadlines, and well-spoken, because, we have a small team, and, you kind of are put client facing right away.
Right.
So we, really expect a high level from the get-go. Laurie, is there anything you'd add to that?
Well, yeah, and I like that you just said we expect a high level because we are such a small company. I used to work from a larger company where someone new started in a really a very trainee position, and there were very defined steps to move up a level. You accomplished this, you could fill out this checklist, and you had these skills, and you moved on automatically. With us, no, we're a small little company, and everybody pretty much hits the ground running. And I think both Caitlin and Brianna can hear that and say, yeah, it's true. We give everybody a lot of big projects to work on right from the very beginning, which is not to say that I hope that we throw anyone into the deep end and expect them to just sink or swim. I don't think we do that. But we give everyone opportunity from the very beginning.
Yes.
And you know what? In this business, I really believe this is true. You can either do it or you can't. And the sooner you learn that if this is not the career for you, the sooner you learn, the better. And some people just aren't cut out for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, second to last question. So how do you keep a work-life balance with a job that requires so much traveling? I mean, this is an incredible question, and a constant work in progress. So, I think everyone has to find their own methods for what that balancing looks like. It's sometimes not easy. I mean, you have your kind of your peaks and of when the meeting season is really busy, and you're going to be traveling a lot. It just is what it is, and you'll have your slow times. You appreciate those slow times, but it doesn't necessarily make the busier times, easier. So, whether you do yoga, whether you're, big in meditation or exercise, or just, if you've been on a week-long program, normally I will take, that next work day off just as a chance to kind of catch up with some of my personal stuff, whether it's, to have a day with my daughter. You have to really carve out that time. Again, sometimes in busy seasons, it's not even possible. But you just know there's always going to be a point when, okay, I know I can slow down. When it gets here, I just need to keep going right now. So, yeah, I think you have to find those methods.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you've got to find a way to turn it off at the end of the day. For me, I love to read at night and just kind of try to get things out of my head. Otherwise, it'll kind of consume me because I can't stop planning unless I do that. You know, I make time to work out, and sometimes I take a walk during the day. I go outside and I just walk around the block and just clear my head. Yeah.
I mean, EJ, what would your answer be to this question?
Great question.
Wow. Well, actually, personally, when I was working as an international meeting planner, I failed it. I failed it to balance my life because I became workaholic because, you know, I worked a different country. That means, you know, I work actually 24 hours.
Yeah.
And my client always brought me to check and update, and I work with someone European the people. They just lay back and they never call me back on time. So if they have holiday, so that kind of lifestyle really really hard, and also I really enjoy my achievement, and then I really exhausted, burnout. But after complete my event, and then they just praise, you know, appreciate my work, and then recontract another one. So it was kind of endless job, endless work, and then yeah. So I kind of one day I just faced like a failure of my life. So like a personal life, like a marriage is kind of not work well, and then my son really like to stay with my mom, not with me, and then she was kind of hard time to stay with me because of communication, and I didn't really know how to play with my son. So suddenly I just decided not to work. I stopped work, and then I came to US just to 1 year break. But I just stayed here, and then I became professor suddenly. I didn't plan it. But I was really, really exhausted at that time. So first year in the US in the Christmas time, and then I heard the radio, and then the announcer said, you know, this is Christmas time, so take care of yourself. This is time for think of you. And then I was driving, and then I cried. I never spent time for myself. So it was really crushed my life. So, but yeah, so when I was PhD in the master's program, I tried hard to make a balance, work-life balance. That is, really hard. We have to take extra effort to keep my life. So that is a big lesson for my life. So that's what I just taught students. You have to know how to balance your life.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important because, our job is always to take care of others and to make them comfortable and to do for others. And you're kind of not thinking about yourself at all, right? You get this for them, get that, and do this, or, go out to, it's always something for others. And so it's very important, right now, before you guys even really dive into this profession, is to figure out what you can do to de-stress. It's an interview question that we ask, because if you don't have a method for it, you're not going to make it. You will burn out. And, I've gotten very close to as well. I think we all probably have. And, it's just really important to constantly check in with yourself, and give yourself what you need. And talk to your superiors, or, really have that communication, because we're just constantly on the go and on to the next meeting, that, sometimes you will forget to, okay, maybe I need to acknowledge that was a great meeting, like come down from that before I start the next one. So, find what works for you and stick to it.
And also, before we go to last question, and I have a very specific question about some communication, because we work in a different country. So when you're preparing the project, working with Spain, that is like a 12-hour, different day and night. So how you maintain communication with different country, the people who different country? So sometimes I just got a phone call 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. It didn't matter, right?
You have to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the hotel staff works during hotel hours, right? Which
Right, exactly.
it's around 8 to 4, sometimes maybe 8 to 5. So I will have to set my alarm and wake up much earlier. When I was planning in Asia, I had to have a lot of evening calls. And so honestly, as a planner, you have to rearrange your schedule to make it fit with theirs.
Yeah. And if that means setting your alarm to get up at 3 in the morning to call the hotel, you can't wait until it's 8:30 in the US, because depending on where you're calling, it's the end of their day.
Right.
So you've got to catch them when they're there. Yeah.
Especially sourcing. I mean, I feel like I'd always have to wake up early, call properties, get some answers. And so it's your job to kind of be proactive on that.
Yeah.
And also another thing is, how about the language language, different language. So like Asia country, they might, Hong Kong, they can speak English, but
well, I was in Shanghai, and is a perfect example of this is that, the taxi drivers in Shanghai do not speak English.
Right.
And there really would be no reason to expect that they would, right? So we were there for a Congress, and I was supporting one of my clients. And so what I had made up was a little card that they would give to the driver that said, when they needed to go to the convention center, so where they were going, and also for on the other side was like the return for what hotel they were staying at. So again, that was something that I needed to think ahead of and provide to all my attendees in advance, so they weren't put in a situation where they could not communicate and couldn't get to where they were going. Laurie?
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing too. I would lean on my DMC, who, 9 times out of 10 is going to be very good with English. And I would rely on them to step in and help me with the language. Yeah.
Okay. And also one more question is, oh my God, the one more question was, I should have noted that. I forgot, sorry about that, but I have really, really practical question. Oh my God, sorry, I just need to catch up that. Sorry, so can you go?
Okay, think about it while we go through the last question.
Yeah, we have one last question.
What advice can you give to a young industry professional who's just getting started? Another really great question. My advice would be any experience you can get in the field, whether it's working at a hotel. I think, bringing the hotel side knowledge of the business into an event company is very, very valuable for that event company, because you need to understand how a hotel works with, their revenues and their departments in order to, be a better partner with them, right? And also communicate that information to the client, because if, you're just presenting the information from the hotel and the clients, well, why is the room rate so high? Or why do we have this F&B? Or why, all of these questions, you also need to be able to speak on behalf of the hotel in terms of, well, you know what, that their profit is from room rate, right? So, and we're going over a high season, so these rates are going to be higher. If we want to look at, a different time of year, then we could probably get more competitive rates. So those are the things that are also really knowledgeable to know. Caitlin on our team, she came from the Marriott and has been able to bring us really, really beneficial information. And then, whether it's also, whether working for a DMC, a CVB, being a travel director, like, Laurie started, it's also how my mom, Linda, started in the industry, or, volunteering for local events is also a really great way Do you have anything addition, Laurie?
No, I would just say jump in there and do it. And sometimes even if you can get a DMC to hire you to go be the person that meets people at the airport with a sign, it's great experience. If you're the person that's going to go watch a group at a dinner and you've got to take care of the restaurant for, even if it's a group of 10 people, doesn't matter. It gets you in the mindset of, how do I watch this group and take care of this group? All good.
Yeah, I remember the question. So actually when I was working, it was kind of, we didn't really utilize the smartphone, even the international meeting or anything, but 2007, and then my client is kind of is the businessman over 40 and 50, so smartphone was not really utilized for the event. So how about the international event? So you guys use the smartphone app or the function of smartphone for your event to assist to your communication, something?
I think it to me, it kind of in a way doesn't matter. If I've got a smartphone, if I've got a local phone, I usually, if it's a large program and a lot of travel directors, because smartphone, people's packages are different and they're using up data and minutes and all kinds of stuff like that. And sometimes it's too complicated. A local phone sometimes is the easiest thing to just use. And then if you can text each other over the phone, that works. I mentioned it before, sometimes just a good old walkie is the quickest thing you can use. Just pick it up and call somebody on the walkie, and you don't have to wait for them to ring and answer a text. It's immediate.
So I'd also add that, utilizing the apps like WhatsApp is really important when you're abroad, because then you aren't using your data.
That's true.
So it's over the internet. So, you're able to text with, whatever your providers are over there that you need to, or even people back home. Like we do a lot of WhatsApp, and then, Skype. I use that for my international calling. So even when I'm here and planning, you do not want to be sitting on your phone on an international planning call for an hour. That is going to be expensive. I have had some pretty bad bills being overseas. And sometimes you just you don't need you can't use the internet connection. You need your actual network. But, Skype is a really good tool in being able to, to call international numbers and trying to save some costs.
True.
Yeah, that's kind of a big difference. Is when I was working, like my phone bill is, so just $1,000 whenever I had it.
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I think there's just so many options now.
Definitely.
You have to work it out depending on where you're going, what you're doing. Yeah.
But make sure to look at that in advance, right?
Right.
Sometimes you have to you have to tell your network you're going, you have to turn off your phone, and and turn some feature on and turn it back on when you land, or else it doesn't work. I've had some of those scares where I'm not getting any of my data or my emails, or the phone's not working. So those are things that you definitely need to consider kind of in that final prep stage before you head out. So you have a working phone.
And also another question, just a broad question for the industry. So you have been working with your client in the international event. So what is the kind of a trend or pattern to kind of go abroad, go global rather than just the national event? So what is the kind of your client preference to have an international event?
It definitely depends on the attendees, right?
Yeah.
So like we do a lot of advisory boards and we do a lot of global advisory boards. And obviously why we would do them overseas would be because the majority of the audience or the attendees are based overseas, right? So we did, Laurie, what was your latest? Would have been
Well,
Frankfurt?
Yeah, people seem to like going to some place that's very central.
Yeah.
So Germany, certainly in pharmaceuticals, Switzerland is very, very popular, easy to get to, very central. But we also like to do meetings in Spain and Portugal, Lisbon. It's always a good place to go. The weather is good. The pricing is good. Room rates and things like that. So
it's a quick flight from New York.
Yeah.
So that's always another consideration is we always have some US attendees going. So they want direct flights. A lot of our clients are on the East Coast. And so it's like, where can we get where we don't have to connect, and also where they have offices, they want to do them in those countries as well. But then, if it's let's say a national sales meeting for the UK office, they want to do it in UK, but then they'll be like, so this is a time of year. Why don't you give us some options? And, and then we will, pull together some locations and present those as some options with keeping in mind the lift, the distance, the cost, weather. There are a lot of factors that go into it, but I think the main factor is the attendees.
Yeah.
That's why it would drive an international versus a domestic meeting, because they, a lot of the pharmaceutical companies, they have in their travel policies that anything over 6 hours or anything transatlantic, they fly business. So that's an extra cost, right? So if 75% of your attendees are, US based, you wouldn't go to Europe. You would bring that 25% here in order to save on costs. So cost is normally a really big factor as well.
Good. Okay, so the student, you may have lots of questions, so it's time for you guys.
Yeah, we want to hear from some of you guys. Oh, Brianna.
Brianna came in.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hey. If you called in, make sure you sign out of the or mute so it doesn't echo.
So this is Brianna Erickson with our team. Brianna, how long have you been with us now? Just I've lost track of time, like 8 months?
It's good. Yeah, it will be a year in August.
Do we lose her again? Uh-oh.
She'll come back.
Is there any way to... Yeah. Okay.
All right, so what?
Other questions? Anyone? Have we given you ideas of burning questions?
Now.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Oh, gee.
Oh, sorry. It was because I was joined in on here and on my phone, and then it wouldn't let me do one or the other, so I had to get off my phone. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so I have been with Global Access since August. And then prior to that, I was working in Chicago at an association management center or company. And so we managed 32 different associations and did like their annual conferences. And so just a tip I would say getting into industry, just try to make as many connections with people as possible. Try to find someone who's in the industry and ask them to be a mentor. And also adding as many people on LinkedIn as possible within the industry. Also, I would say there's so many different aspects of the industry that you might not even know of. There's DMCs, CVDs. You might not know exactly what you want to do. Just jump into anything and make as many connections as possible, and that'll help you kind of figure out what avenue you want to get into from there.
And what would you say, Bree, was the most unexpected part when you like of getting into the job? I forgot what that question was.
Yeah.
Oh, from jumping into the job, I would say the managing the workload. When I first started in the association business, we had many different managers that we worked with, and each one was working on their own clients, and we were supporting multiple managers with multiple different clients. And so it got really difficult at times when some of the managers were unsure like what our workload looked like. And I know I could speak for a lot of the admins on our team where it was really hard to communicate back to those managers, like, you know, I might need to push this deadline back a little bit further with you because I'm working on this huge project with one of the other managers that you're not even aware of because it's not on your radar. It's not something you're working on. So that was like a huge learning curve for me, just being able to get comfortable with like learning my organization method, like how do I prioritize my to-do list? And then in addition, like how do you communicate with your managers? Like, I'm sorry, but this project that you think is super important and needs to get done today, I actually am going to need to push it back till next week because I have this, and this going on. And there were times when I was on site for a meeting and I had other managers asking me to work on projects for them. So instead of communicating to them, since I was a new employee, I would wake up at like 3:30 in the morning and go down to the convention center where there's like good Wi-Fi and start working on these other projects. And then I finally got enough courage to be like, okay, no, I need to communicate back to these people. Like, this isn't acceptable. Like, I am actually on site. I'm working 15-hour days here and I need a little bit more time. Or is this something that can wait?
Those are great points.
That's really good.
Do you have any advice if somebody wanted to go into associations or the association side of business, Bree, since now you've been on both?
Yeah, so I actually, when I graduated with a business degree and I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And when I graduated, I was like, you know, I really like event planning, but I don't know anything about that industry. So I kind of thought that the only avenue to go into was on the hotel side. So I was actually like looking into different hotel jobs. I had no idea this existed. So then I actually went through a recruiter in Chicago that like specialized with entry-level positions. And when I met with him, I was like, you know, I'd love to be an event planner. And she kind of laughed at me and was like, oh, we don't have those kind of connections here. Like, we do very entry-level, like call center type jobs. And I was like, okay. So she ended up getting me connected with the Association Management Center and asked to do the call center. And then when I interviewed with them, they were like, you know, we'd really love you to be in our registration department. And I was like, I have no idea what that means or what that job entails, but I need a job, so I'll do it. So the job ended up being working the registration desk for their conferences. And I like learned, like I didn't even know that that was an industry. And so then I just fell in love with it. So I would say just like, you might be surprised, like getting into your next job and finding out, oh, I never knew this existed, but this is my dream job. And so, yeah, again, I would say if you're interested in associations, try looking into different meeting planning associations like PCMA, MPI, getting involved there, going to their meetings, becoming a member, finding a mentor. Yeah, those are all really great things.
Yeah, those are great points, Bree. You know, and like she said, getting involved and going to some of the industry events, like maybe an MIC, something, educational where you can meet people. IMEX is obviously a great one, but can be a little overwhelming if you're just starting out. But
Yeah.
But those are really, really great suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another tip I would say, just for like specifically getting a job, I think in today's world, if you do end up coming across like your dream job, whether you see it on Indeed or posted somewhere online, definitely apply for it. But also remember, these companies are getting so many different resumes, and you need to do something that sets you apart. And something I would recommend is trying to find the recruiter of that company on LinkedIn. So literally just going to LinkedIn, finding the company, and then looking for someone who is in their HR department or anyone that has the title of talent acquisition or recruiter, and then trying to message them on LinkedIn, or like even get the premium for the 30-day trial or whatever, and send them a message so they can see your picture pop up. You are in their inbox and it's like top of mind. I actually did that with Global Access. I messaged Brooke and it worked.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
They're very, very fortunate. She sent me that message.
Oh my God, that's very, very, yes. Yeah, sometimes I access that way to invite some guest speaker as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'll just, if I can tag this onto what Brianna just said, for everyone on this call, I think also the other thing you can look for is internships. I think internships, it's one of the most important things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Get your feet in. And again, like before you're fully invested in a job, find out if this is the industry you really want. Or as Bree was saying, this may not be the segment of this industry that you like. Maybe you do an internship with DMC and you say, I really don't like that, but I think I want to try this part. And then you're not fully invested in the job.
Right. The events world is very big, I just like some of you already said, are interested in the concert and festival arena is so different from corporate meetings that we talked to you about today.
Right.
So, it's,
right.
you just have to try things out.
Yeah. If you have a few different parts of the industry that you're interested in, I would recommend trying to find people who are in like higher level positions in those industries and just reaching out to them. You guys would be surprised how willing some people are to just chat about what they do and talk to you about what their day-to-day looks like. And even if you're not specifically trying to work for that company, just finding someone who has a job title that you're like, oh, that sounds really interesting to me, but I have no idea what their day-to-day looks like. Just reach out to them and ask them to either chat on the phone or even go out for a cup of coffee. And I know it sounds kind of scary, but you how many people would take you up on that offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so I know we have 10 minutes left. I mean, I want to open it up to any questions. And if there aren't any, especially with the Lisbon group, we've done a couple meetings in Lisbon. If you had any questions about your upcoming pitch.
Oh, one question from student, and then she is very interesting about the sustainability. So that global meeting is the sustainability, like a green event would be a big issue, a big agenda for the industry. So that is a question. So
is the question, sorry.
How would you see?
Sustainability is big?
Oh yeah, in the overall, globally. Yeah.
Oh yes. In fact, in some countries, it's actually, I would say, more important than it is in the U.S. There are some countries that have been way ahead of us on their sustainability efforts. Absolutely.
And again, I think that's also, you know, a job of the planner too, right? To ensure you are suggesting ways to be sustainable, because I do think your attendees are thinking about it. They absolutely are thinking about it. You know, for instance, like we don't do water bottles. Some attendees don't like that, but you know, we do infused water stations, so they could get, you know, some cucumber water or basil, and we make sure to switch it out daily. We also have regular, you know, water bubblers, so making sure it's filtered water. But you know, not only do you save a ton of money by not doing bottled water, we all know, you know, the sustainability that is also adding to. So, you know, making sure that you kind of suggest things for your events as well, and it is important, you know, because you guide those efforts.
I guess I do have a question. This is Krista. Since you are your own independent company, is it more common for larger corporations to hire a company such as yours to plan events, or do they typically have their own, you know, people within their company who do this sort of thing for their company specifically?
It
Well,
depends.
it's kind of both.
Right.
Yeah.
I think with where we end up, you know, partnering really well is with companies who really need an extension of their company to execute their meeting needs. So normally they don't have anybody internally that is an internal meeting planner. And so we just have like a client contact that we work with, and we kind of manage all the meeting planning. But I've also worked on programs where, you know, the corporations are huge, right? So they do have an internal meeting planning company, but yet they still will contract with a third party because they're also managing so many internal events of their own that they need additional assistance with some of their like larger sales meetings. So I think it's certainly a little bit of both. Laurie?
Yeah, that's exactly true. Years ago, when I first started on the planning aspect, I actually was a freelancer for Sears. And Sears had a small meeting planning department, and occasionally they would outsource it. But we really did everything for Sears. But I mean, when I was a travel director, certainly I did a lot of meetings for big companies, Coke, Pepsi, American Express, you name it. And even though they did have their own planning departments, they still hire a third party to really take care of kind of programs. Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of both. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.